Every opportunity that I was a part of, I feel like I learned more from the negative than the positive. And because I was with my young companies, I was always in businesses with 5 to 20 employees. And so I got to see the beginnings of, okay, how do you start to build infrastructure with a startup? How do you start to hire a good team? How do we motivate? Where I felt like I was always kind of in training for my future endeavor. And I had some amazing CEOs and had some really poor ones that I worked for, and I'd say between the time I graduated school in 2014 up until starting Elevate in 2019, I got laid off or fired from like 40% of those roles. I mean, I was hardly at a place for a year, which had some really interesting implications on my self-worth, right? Knowing that I wasn't excelling at any of this, plus the companies, some of it was outside of my control. Like the company might have failed because of bad moves on one side by the CEO, and I'm just a salesperson. I'm trying to build my own little funnel, and things have, things just like fell off. And so it was really interesting having to manifest, some like how do I even know that I can succeed when I've been let go and I've kind of been this black sheep for so long? So I really had a chip on my shoulder. So it's kind of both. It's not really a good answer, but I knew that one day I was going to be my own entrepreneur, and I was using those times to really learn. So it wasn't like one day, but I did get fed up. The last time I got fired in 2019, yeah, I knew that it was my time. I was like, okay, I've done this. I went from startup sales to nonprofit development work, trying to find my purpose. And was like, that didn't work. I didn't like that. Let's go to nonprofits. Okay, that was interesting. Still got fired. So let's like this is it now. Like this is my time.
How did you keep the negative voices from making you think that you couldn't do anything well? Because that's a pretty tumultuous resume. I mean, if you put all those out there with all the years you worked, someone would be like, I'm not sure I'm going to hire you because is it you? Is it like at some point you start to wonder? So, how did you keep it together mentally?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I how did I keep together mentally? I mean, it negatively impacted a lot
It
for
did. Okay.
sure. I mean, my relationship with my girlfriend at the time, I was with someone for about 4 years, and we broke up a year into having this company. So, it negatively impacted quite a bit. Um, and I started to see a therapist, so really being open about my mental health was really important. And but you know, it feels like I kind of pushed the blame, and I was always learning, right? Like I was always investing in my knowledge. Like I did General Assembly's digital marketing course. I paid for my own sales training through Sandler. So it was like every year I was continuing to learn to try to develop my skill set. And so it was hard to be like, is this on me? Is this on the company? Is this on the leader? Is this, and trying not to take all the blame and responsibility when so much of it was out of my control. But I still did, I still was like, if I was a little better, maybe this would have been different. And so I feel like that was a really big struggle. It's just kind of the oscillations, right? Like, oh, I could do better. Oh yeah, but I'm like, and it was, it was just, it was tough. And I feel like it definitely impacted my sense of purpose because I wasn't that excited about it. And some jobs I actively just didn't even enjoy. And I feel like that was like, this is like, okay, this isn't for me. Like sitting here at a computer and running a sales funnel isn't for me. And sometimes I had to come to terms with that. Like, oh yeah, I might have done a lot of sales. I might have done well at door-to-door sales, but this siloed role just is not for me. I was getting bored doing the same thing every day, having the same conversations. And so some of that was like knowing myself and being able to make that decision, and my personality, I'm a promoter, Enneagram's a 7, like high energy. I don't plan very well. I operate very well in ambiguity and chaos. And so it felt like I just had to accept that about myself and know that it was be willing to take the risk. And I feel like when I was younger, I wouldn't have had the confidence to go out on my own yet. But as I was approaching 30, it's like, okay, I've seen companies do this. I've seen younger people start companies and do well. I've been in the workforce for several years. I've seen hiring and firing and failing and succeeding. So now it's kind of my turn. It's my turn to go out and do this.
It's so wise what you talked about with mindset, because you easily could have taken all of the things that happened to you and turned it inward and thought, it's me. Or you can go out and, especially I suspect college graduates or people out in the workforce who want to make a change will hear this, and to think about taking a role, not for the rest of your life, not because you think you're going to love it necessarily, but because you think you could learn something. And then when it doesn't work out, okay, what did I learn from it? Get really intentional about it. Then go to the next thing. Okay, what did I learn from this? And then eventually, with enough experiences and enough learning, you then are prepared to go do the thing you really wanted to do. And it frustrates me, and I've said it before on this podcast, that people in college take an entrepreneurship class and then start a business. Like, you are not prepared to, I mean, it happens. I get it. The Mark Zuckerbergs, they're out there, right? But you got to learn some stuff from other people. That's my perspective. Do you agree with that? Or do you think that someone can, go to college, get an entrepreneurship degree and successfully start a company? I guess it's both. People amaze me.
Yeah. And we see, I like to think of things in percentages or chances. And if I think about me as a young man coming out of the University of Kentucky, had I taken an entrepreneurship course, I would not have had the maturity, the experience. I don't know the resources. I don't know the people around me that I can call on. Some people get out and do that stuff, and I think it's absolutely amazing. Are the chances of success as high if you have experience and you know people in your community? No. But if you're young and the risks are so much lower, because, as we get older, the risks of entrepreneurship are so much higher. The risk of flipping the script is so much higher because we're either in a serious relationship, starting to want to think about a family, needing to buy a house. And so it's a weird kind of like, yeah, my chances are lower, but I can afford the risk because I'm also not expecting to travel and live in a nice apartment or whatever that might be. But I know that I would not have been able to do it had I not been I went to grad school for entrepreneurship. And then I still wanted a few years of learning and growing and maturing before I did something on my own. But if someone's coming out of school and they have a great idea and they have a way to gather the resources or the team around them that they feel comfortable, it's like, and there's so much knowledge now on YouTube. Oh my gosh, we can get 10 years ago, this just wasn't even, it was like Eric Ries's A Lean Startup was like the Bible, and now there's all this content around how to succeed and how to start a team and all this stuff. So, I don't know. I mean,
it's both and, right? I mean,
yeah.
You convinced me, like most people, I think 50% or more than 50% will fail. However, I think it's industry specific, it's person specific, it's who you build your team around specific. So can it work? Sure, it can work. Is it am I going to bet on that? Maybe, but then there's a lot of really, really experienced people out there that should not be starting businesses either. So it is a lot about, you love chaos, right? Like someone who loves chaos and loves to be in an environment where things are constantly changing. That's someone who I would bet on to be an entrepreneur, because that's what you need to do to take something and grow it. And even listening to you, and I'm sure we're going to cut some of them out, but other people hear them, like your Slack's going off, your email's going off, your phone's going off. Like you live in a chaotic world because you're an entrepreneur, and that's what it looks like. And that's what it sounds like.
That's absolutely right. And at this point, I have a Microsoft Surface and I've turned off my notifications and it still notifies me. And I don't even know how to solve this problem. Like, where's my tech team?
The chaos. But you love that. So see, you could roll with it. Someone else with a different Enneagram score would be like unable to communicate. So it just proves the point.